Yeah, my goal was to go as far away as possible and just find a different culture. Did you go away to college, or were you relatively close going to Temple
I
University?
went away. But yeah, Temple University, and it was a great film school. I was going to be a doctor, and I quit pre-med because I couldn't do chemistry or math. I'm too dumb at
Right.
numbers. But I was a people person, and I loved film. I'd been making 8 millimeter. Now you're using your phone, but I would make student movies. And the movie I made at Temple University, I won a Student Academy Award. And the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences flew me to LA, and I met Steven Spielberg and Howard
Wow.
Koch, who was the head of the Academy at the time, and all these amazing people in my life that I still know some today. And Matt Stone had won one, Spike Lee had won one, John Lasseter, Pixar, had
Wow.
won one. So I met all these people, and they were there, and I was 21 years old. It was pretty amazing. I was an 11-minute serious documentary about my nephew who had his face reconstructed. I'm not
Ooh.
screwing around. That's the
Yeah.
truth. And he was 7 years old when he had it done. And so tell me that's a long ass answer.
No. I mean, that's very interesting to me. I didn't know you started out that early, at least, getting one of your films in school selected in order to win that trip. And then, of course, you've done a ton on both the stand-up side and the film side. And I know we don't have a ton of time, so I kind of wanted to pick your brain about one specific thing. And obviously, you've done Full House, you've done America's Home Videos, you've done a ton of films, a ton of stand-up stuff as well, a ton of experiences on both ends of the spectrum. Why were you chosen, because I'm such a big fan of the show, why were you chosen as the elder voice, as the narrator, the elder voice of Ted Mosby, which is obviously played by Josh Radnor, in How I Met Your Mother? Because it's very interesting to me that they would pick someone else besides Josh to narrate it, even though it's him and his life talking. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain about how they confronted you to portray that, and what your overall stance was on actually being the, again, elder voice of Josh Radnor in a sense.
Well, I was friends with one of the exec producers, Pam Fryman, and I got a phone call from her, and I was doing an off-Broadway play in New York, and she said, "Would you like to voice this show?" And I read the script, How I Met Your Mother, the pilot, and I said, "Well, why don't you have him doing it?" And she said, "We wanted to have an older feel." I said, "What, you wanted to sound like cigars and alcohol? Because I'm your
Right.
man." And she said, kind of, but we wanted to sound like a familiar voice, a fatherly voice. And so that's how it happened. And Josh and I are good friends, and we've talked about it. Actually, on the box set of the DVDs of How I Met Your Mother, the very last episode that on CBS, Josh Radnor narrated, on the box set is an alternate version where I do narrate the last
Oh,
episode.
wow.
So I got to say, and kids, that's the story of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Uh, I say it so solemnly because it was a sad ending. It didn't upset me. I'll talk about it more if I want, but it was actually emotional and wonderful. And it was a wonderful show, and I was proud to be a silent part of it with an amazing cast and brilliant
I mean,
people.
you get to, again, work and collaborate with all of these different people, whether it is Full House, doing that for as long as you did with those guys, building those relationships and those friendships, and then obviously at How I Met Your Mother as well. I mean, you probably miss all of that at this point. Again, like doing this live stream tonight, interacting with some of your fans, and at the same time, actually getting to do something with a platform. Because you haven't done much over the past year, have you? I know you did The Masked Singer, right? You dressed up as the Squiggly Monster, as the Masked Singer.
And it was weird, man, because I was doing, it was COVID, so it was the first thing I did. They had asked me to be on The Masked Singer before, and I'm friends with Ken Jeong, and I've known Robin Thicke a long time. I was friends with his dad, may he rest in peace, Alan Thicke. And they asked me for years, since it started, do you want to be on it? And I said, no, I'm good. And then after about 6 months of quarantine, I got a call from the producer, Craig Plestis, and he said, "Do you want to be on?" I said, "Yes." It was like, I clipped him. I wouldn't let him finish the sentence or the question. And I had a really good time, but they wouldn't let me see anybody. I was like, who's Broccoli? Because Broccoli started to piss me off. And then I didn't realize it was a competition. So the Masked Singer, you wear this. I had a diving helmet, not diving bell, that would have been heavier, diving helmet kind of thing on my head, and it hurt like hell. So I'm trying to walk. I can't see anything. And I sang for real.
Right.
It doesn't look good. Don't use that image. I had the mic up to the mesh, but and then when they took the head off, when I got kicked off the show, when they yelled take it off, and I wanted to pull my pants down, but that could have happened, by the way, because the pants come off easy, but the upper half is incredibly heavy. Anyway, so here's the deal. I didn't know that I was going to see the other characters. So here I am with jellyfish and all these weird lips and all these, no, lips had already gotten kicked off. And I'm looking, and it looked like the Star Wars bar.
Right.
It looked like a lineup that I was in with freaks. And then I never got to see anybody, and I was wondering who they were. Broccoli was Paul Anka. So I don't know. I could have kicked his butt. I think I should have got a third song. It was Folsom Prison would have been my third song by Johnny Cash.
Oh, yeah.
They would have kicked me off.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I enjoyed doing it. Nobody asked.
It definitely had to take you out of your comfort zone, considering the previous roles that you played. Because again, you are one of those unique guys in a unique position where you're a dirty comic who's also portrayed as this squeaky clean dad in the eyes of most viewers who see you on television in film. When did Full House start? In the 90s, the 80s? I think it was late 80s, right? And then, like you said, like you have that clean cut persona. And at the same time, you're a comic who's willing to go off the rails.
I was on another show on CBS called The Morning Program, and I was on it for 5 months. It was on against Good Morning America and the Today Show, and I got fired because they said I was too hot for morning TV. And one of the hosts of the show, Mariette Hartley, very nice person, actress person, nice person, said, "Bob, are you a type A personality?" And I said, "Yes, but I'm trying to work on my anus." And I meant A-ness, but I said anus. And she said, "Go to your room." And they sent me to my room, which is nothing. It wasn't a real room, but it was a set. And I went up the stairs, and I waited there for 15 minutes till the commercial break. And then I knew that I was not going to be there anymore. So then my manager called Jeff Franklin, the creator of Full House, who said he wanted me to begin with. And they flew me to L.A. Well, I was there doing this other show, The Morning Program, and I did a screen test with Dave, who was my friend for 10 years before, and John Stamos, who was my husband. And that's it. I ended up doing the show for a very long time, and it didn't do well.
Yeah, I heard that. It took a while, like nearly 4 or 5 years before it to actually get going. Of course, like you and Stamos being the stars of that show as the adult figures in that show, because again, you came into it as a quote-unquote dirty comic. Like you were not the squeaky clean guy that everybody kind of sees you now, at least again from the film side of things. When did how old were you when you started comedy, or like how old were you when you realized that that's what you wanted to pursue? Because again, to be able to go from where you are from a stand-up standpoint and a film standpoint, it's again unheard of. Like you are definitely a rare breed in the sense of going from someone who tells inappropriate jokes to being again this clean-cut guy on
17.
TV.
I started at 17 years old, and I won a radio contest in Philly at WMMR Radio. And I won $500, and I sang a song about bondage. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. A 17-year-old singing a song about bondage. Something's wrong with that kid. And I used to also take my guitar. I did all guitar music on parodies and comedy songs because I loved Martin Mull and other comedy musicians. And I've been playing guitar since I was 11. I used to take the train to New York and wait in line 14 hours, sign the sheet on open mic nights at the Improv in New York, Catch a Rising Star in New York. And it was pretty amazing. I'll never forget it. And I'm glad I came up the hard way, living at home with my parents, making student films, and then taking a train to go do comedy and wait in line forever. That's kind of wisdom comes through suffering.
Oh, yeah.
I think a philosopher said that who died a very violent death.
No, I say that all the time. I mean, my listeners who listen hear that frequently as well. I totally believe that the best moments in life come from those learning experiences and those really hardship times. And I'm sure you've had a ton of those experiences as well coming up, whether it was in film or stand-up, where, again, like you have to tell jokes, and if they don't work, those are some pretty awkward, weird, and hard times. You were also on Broadway, right? I'm sure that had to be a very big learning curve for you, having to do all of that on stage with an audience.
Well, I'll tell you, it was The Drowsy Chaperone. Now, this is a play that Bob Martin wrote and starred in, and he's brilliant. He just wrote a movie. I'm trying to think of what movie it is. Bob Martin. He's so brilliant. He had written a show in Canada called Slings and Arrows, a TV show.
Right.
And The Drowsy Chaperone, if you ever get a chance to see it, who became a dear friend of mine is the producer, Kevin McCullum, and another big producer of the show is Bob Boyette, who I'd been friends with for a long time because he was also one of the exec producers of Full House. And along with Tom Miller, they produced shows like Mork and Mindy and Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days. And Bosom Buddies is how I met him, because that was Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari, and I was the warm-up comic on there. So then cut two, as some people say, which is really annoying. Here I am on Broadway, the second biggest theater, the Marquee, and I'd already done an off-Broadway play, which is the one I was doing called Privilege by Paul Weitz, who wrote about a boy and directed and wrote In Good Company. Remember that movie with Topher Grace and Scarlett Johansson?
Dennis Quaid as well in that movie. Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting to hear you kind of trying to go out of your comfort zone to pursue all of these different things. Again, whether it's film, stand-up, Broadway, being on The Masked Singer during COVID times. I mean, I'm sure you talked a lot about it in Dirty Daddy, your book. I know a lot of people will see that and think, like, yeah, he's the American dad, he's the stand-up comic, but at the same time, you tell a lot of personal stories in that book as well. What are some of the specific things that you tell in Dirty Daddy?
The byline underneath it was, I believe it was Chronicles of a Family Man turned Filthy Comedian. I think I would change the title completely at this point, but I'm really proud of it. It's not a curse book. It does have a stream of consciousness. When I first did the book tour, I was at the 92nd Street Y in New York City, and John Oliver interviewed me for the talkback. You do a thing back and forth when you're going on a book tour. And it was right before last week tonight. And he has such a brilliant free associative mind. I had like 3 pages on worrying about getting old, and I don't know, I'd have leakage, and it would be coming out of my, my penis, and then I would slip on it and fall down the stairs. And it was 3 pages of that. And then there'd be a chapter about how I lost 2 sisters. And so I talk about a lot of loss in my life, and then how to find humor. And that's kind of, I think, what I got from my dad was a gift of not walking around going, why me? Why did this happen to me? And instead have an attitude of, how can I get through this and help others through it? Because loss is so difficult, and to find humor, not just gallows humor, not just a sick joke, but to somehow, it's hard to explain, but it's when something breaks the ice and you can get a smile out of someone who's going through the worst time in their life. And it could be with a fart joke. It can be with something that's not totally crude, but it's in the book Dirty Daddy, which was a New York Times bestseller. I don't know who got paid off.
No, but that's so true, man. I mean, you've obviously displayed that through whether it's stand-up and, again, Full House, which is, I think, a lot of people know you for Danny Tanner, obviously. But, there's so many things, like you said, just little things that in order to make people laugh, to, again, kind of change their mindset, go about their day in a totally different perspective. You did another comedy special, right, on HBO as well. While we're at it, when we're talking about comedy, you did an HBO special.
That Ain't Right. And that was a special that I got a lot of shit for, because it was very highly rated, whatever they say, and it got either rave reviews or terrible reviews, but that doesn't matter. You do what you think is funny. And that was around the time that a lot of things happened. I'd been on Entourage, and I'd been on, I was in The Aristocrats. A lot of stuff had happened. And I just came out of the gate, and it was an R-rated special. People think I'm X-rated. I've never been X-rated, ever. I don't talk about things gynecological. I do when I go to the gynecologist, because I'm trying to make a choice in my life right now. God, can I cancel myself? Anyway, so HBO, I did a special with them. That Ain't Right, and I shot it at the Skirball Center, Skirball Theater in New York City. at NYU. So the audience was 21 years old. So there were a lot of F-bombs in it. I mean, if you counted the times I said that word, you would be,
Oh
I
yeah.
did a drinking game, you would not get up. But I love doing that special, and it still runs, and people still like it. And I watch it and go, whoa, I don't think I'd say that now. But then again, I don't know what I'm going to do when I do my new special, when I get back to doing a new tour, as a lot of us comedians are dying to
I mean, I'm
do.
sure you guys are dying to get back, in that room together and crank out some material. I mean, being friends with people, that you've worked with for so many years, whether it's comics, actors alike, like you're in Full House, you did Fuller House recently as well. You're in the Entourage episodes as well. What's it like being friends with people that you've worked with for so many years and, maintaining some of those friendships while others have kind of been tossed aside. But again, like, how is that for you, and how have you been able to maintain those friendships over the years?
Whatever shows I've been on and know people from, I stay friends with them. Except for a couple pilots that I wanted to stay friends with people. But, it's weird because it's not like high school. I don't have many friends from high school, but I moved a lot.
No, I'm absolutely the same way. I stayed in touch with nobody from high school. I mean, an occasional text message every now and then, but I've lost touch with all of those people. At the end of the day, you're going to find the people that you mesh well with, and obviously you found those people, outside of the industry, but inside the industry for everybody to see from a public standpoint. Obviously, you and Stamos together on television was gold for so many years. You guys still get together and play music together, I know. You actually won a grant, or you were nominated, excuse me, for a Grammy album back in the day, right?
That's what I'm talking about. Because after you do a special called That Ain't Right, what's your next one called? That's what I'm talking about, with an apostrophe after the N. And I'm really proud of that special. I shot it at the Moore Theater in Seattle, and I was up against some really, really talented people. And Kathy Griffin actually won for Best Comedy Album. And I thought Tig Notaro was going to win because she's so special. And I'm trying to think who else was in that category. Might have been Patton Oswalt, who's up again, I believe, this year. He's up pretty much every year because he's so prolific and brilliant.
I mean, I've always found it so fascinating, guys in your world who are able to come up with this stuff, whether it's, long term, short term, you think of it right off the top of your head, or it takes you months, even years to come up with a certain material that just is so ironic and funny, and it makes people think, like, in the moment, just like, yeah, he's so right. And you see that today with comics, whether it's on Netflix or you go out to a show. Obviously, we haven't been able to, but, in the past, comics, whether, again, you're on Netflix online talking about real life experiences that are ironic and real at the same time, I feel like it's going to be a lot harder moving forward, because, again, you were talking about it earlier on the stream as well as here, about, cancel culture and people, taking offense to a lot of things. But, do you feel like the comics today, whether, it is the Bill Burrs or the Chapelles or the Chris Rocks of the world, do you think that they're going to be, as well as you, because, again, you're a comic who's not afraid to give his opinions on things in the way that you give them. Do you think it's going to be easier or harder? And have you enjoyed the specials that have come out over the past year, given everything that's been going on?
Don't you love the comics online? I feel so much better when I'm watching comedy being done during this time. You just deflect and you go to it, and all of a sudden on your phone you got Sebastian or Jim Gaffigan or Dave Chapelle or Chris Rock or people that you love, whoever makes you laugh. And that's what we need to do right now, because it's hard, because a lot of stuff is parody of the remains of the day, and the remains are just horrible. It's just people calling each other crap, and it's like a roast, but it's not funny. It's like, if you're going to make fun of somebody, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to mention, gone to Cancun. I'm not going to mention, taking off your masks. I mean, some people should wear them all the time. We know what some of you look like. Not me. I should wear a mask. I don't look that good. I look okay. I mean, I'm going to be 65. And my ex-wife actually emailed me and said, you need to file for Medicare. I'm like, what? I'm living to like 110 because I got to make all you kids, I got to educate you.
Yeah.
I actually feel a responsibility. Sometimes I'll get introduced somewhere and they'll say America's favorite dad. I was one time at the Comedy Store in L.A., and I wanted to go on, and it was late, and sometimes guests drop in. And this is about a year and a half ago, maybe a little more, but before quarantine, before COVID.
Mm-hmm, right.
Wow, man, right? And so when I say man, I mean everybody.
Yep.
Right, man? No.
Right.
Right, everybody? So what happened was I called, and it's like 12:30, and I said, I want to come in. And they said, oh, Chris Rock's going up. And I went, wow, okay. So he's going to bring me up? And they said, yeah. And I went, cool. So I go there, and he's, crushing and doing some great stuff because he's brilliant.
Right.
And then he introduces me, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, he raised us all. He's America's dad. And it was like such an honor to me because I didn't know I raised Chris. I'm really proud. I'd want to get a cut, and he brought me up on stage, and I got to hug him because he's like my son after he says I'm like his dad. And I got a standing ovation, and they weren't leaving because Dave Chapelle stayed, and he sat at the piano because he'd gone on and done 45. This happened at 1:30 in the morning. And that's when businesses come back, when everything is coming back in the months ahead, because we're all going to get vaccinated. I got the first shot in my penis, and the second one's going to be in my butt. So that way I'm balanced and I don't fall.
Right, yeah.
Because otherwise I'll be like a weeble. I don't know if you know what they are. They wobble, but they don't fall down. It's an old thing. You wouldn't know. But it's like those things you punch and they come back.
Okay.
Your kids. No, I don't hit my kids. I hit my kid once, one of my kids. And she was like 3, and I made a mistake, but she pooped in the pool, and I got mad.
Yeah,
and
I get
spanked
that.
her. And but she wasn't done pooping, so the joke was on me and on my hand. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
But she reminds me to this day, and I love all my kids equally. My favorite is whoever I'm with at that moment. So I guess the punchline to what I'm getting to is non-existent. But I do love the responsibility of having been a dad on those shows. Some people go, "Oh, why are you dirty? Why is your..."
Right,
because
right.
Danny Tanner was a character, right? But people don't know that, and they go, "Why don't you act like Danny Tanner?" And it's like, well, Anthony Hopkins was, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
That's not what he's like in real life. He doesn't eat people. I actually said that once to Conan O'Brien, and he said, no, he does. That Anthony Hopkins eats people. But anyway, so I love being a father, and I love portraying a good dad, but I also love doing stand-up, and I'm going to get out and do it again. And I try not to write dirty stuff, but sometimes I can't help it. The stuff I've been coming up. In fact, I'll read a joke that I just wrote down the other day.
Nice.
To give you an idea, I got the iPhone, and I write down my list of jokes on it, right? So that's how I roll through life. The last thing I wrote down is going to be inappropriate because I just can't help but think of things. There's a lot of stuff. People want to know how you do comedy. It's just like, well, you can't see it.
Right.
That's great. Let me make it brighter. Okay. I can't say any of this. Oh, I can't say any of this. Okay, I'll say something.
Thank God.
That a friend of mine, this is not appropriate. A friend of mine said, when you have sex, you got to use lube. And I said, I haven't had sex in a while, so when I do, I start crying. And I found out that tears make a really good lube.
Ooh.
So you can weep on... Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you anything else I wrote down, but you'll see it in the next stand-up special or on the road, and then I'll cut that one. I'm really serious.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. And thanks so much for taking time out of the night after this stream. Again, Bob Saget with us here. I hope you enjoy the rest of, your quarantine. I know you're itching to get back in the game. Your new movie coming out as well that you guys are going to be filming out in LA soon. So I wish you the best of luck, man. Oh, yeah, definitely. I can't wait till everybody can come back and interact. It'll be a blast, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks so much, Bob.
I'm so boned. I forgot to get my girl tickets for the show tomorrow, and now it's sold out. It's her freaking birthday.
Oh, dude. She's totally gonna break up with you.
She's definitely gonna break up with me.
Should've used TickPick.
Wait, what'd you say?
TickPick. Look.
Whoa, dude.
What? There are no hidden fees. What'd you guys think I said?
Oh, Tick Pick. I thought you said...
TickPick. No hidden fees. Download today.